Lads and lassies, I've actually spent the last 10 hours of my life researching, theorizing and doing everything in my power to find out the best in slot artifacts for every character in PvE and PvP. So you want to push endgame, you want to clean your artifact inventory, this is the only guide you'll need. Starting with our girl Attal. For PvE content, I would actually recommend the complete talisman set in every slot, which is really great especially for group content because you're not only healing but also buffing with overshields and damage boosts. This changes for solo content. Here we swapped the first and fourth slot with the token set, which has actually some great perks like giving yourself an overshield or doing massive damage with your precision weapons. For PvP we're going to use different artifacts because we don't want to rely on our teammates healing us. We also want our artifacts to be constant, not to rely on stacking or stuff like that. So in the first slot we're going to use the inverted guard. Important information. As for now it looks like the description of the inverted guard isn't correct. If it changes in the future, you can swap this one to the abundant planetesimal, and this goes for every time I've picked the inverted guard, but only if it changes. Unrelenting token in the second slot, which gives you resistance when ADSing with power weapons, and in the third and fourth slot we're going to use the planetesimal set, which is always great in PvP. This one is way better than the talisman of inspiration because the talisman of inspiration relies on your teammates healing you to keep the effect up. Because her passive gives her self-healing for 6 seconds, you trigger this while using your abilities, and the effect of the planetesimal is also triggered by using abilities and also lasts for 6 seconds but gives a higher damage buff. The only difference is this one would boost your overall damage while this one only boosts weapons, which isn't as bad. Normally in PvP you would use your grenades and then shoot at the targets, so you don't have any ability combos or stuff like that. Next up, Finnala. For PvE, we're using the radiation set in every slot. This one relies on you or enemies around you getting continuous damage, and the continuous damage on yourself is not only triggered by enemies attacking you but also because of the rampage effect from the fourth slot. And also her abilities are scorching the enemies, which leads to them continuously losing health. For PvP we're also switching it up using the resolute conjunction in the first spot, which is great because only her primary weapon is a ranged weapon. The rest of her kit is close combat. And for the second, third and fourth slot we're again using the planetesimal set, which is somewhat of a no-brainer, works with every guardian in. As you know, I did not draw for Gwynn, so we have to do this in this menu. For PvE I would go in the first slot with Ring of Abundance, and for PvP with Resolution Conjunction. In PvE, especially in group content, you're not always close to the boss, and you're also getting healing and overshield from other people as well. And also the healing leads to you getting more overshields when using your signature ability and all. For the second slot, both in PvE and PvP, we're going with the Ring of Conversion, which would also stack on top of the overshield you're already getting. In the third slot for PvE, we would use the Ring of Morale. I would prefer this one over the Ring of Courage because I expect the overshield to be lost because of damage and then regained because of the overhealing. In PvP, we would use the Bellicose Veil, which would lead to an insane combo when you would teleport to your enemies, buffing the next signature ability, which would be your spinning thingy. And this also gets amplified by the fourth artifact slot where we would use the Valiant Veil, which also gets triggered by the movement ability. For PvE, rampaging planetesimal, because again, as in the first slot of her being close combat, except for her primary weapons. Ikora is pretty straightforward. Her artifacts are the same both for PvE and PvP, and in the first slot we're using the Unrelenting Shell because you're constantly reloading with your weapons. In the second spot we're using the Bloodthirsty Shell, and we're also using the shell artifacts in the third and fourth slot. She can actually get an overshield too, but I personally think it's not worth building upon as the shell set is tailor-made for her. Jolder is next, who's actually pretty similar to Gwynn because of her overshield capability, which is even better. She can create an overshield with basically all of her abilities. That's why we're using the ring set in every slot for PvE. Again, in the second slot, the overshield should stack upon your already existing overshield, but instead of the Ring of Moral, we're using the Ring of Courage in the third slot. Because of her ult, she's getting a constant overshield, which is also amplified in group content by your allies giving you overshield and heals too. And that's why in the last slot we're choosing the Ring of Reflection. For PvP, there are also certain similarities. In the first slot slot we're using the Resolute Conjunction again, because only her shield throwing is kind of ranged and the rest is close combat. In the second slot we're using the Ring of Conversion again. In the third slot we're actually switching the Ring of Courage for the Ring of Moral, because we can't rely on our teammates also giving us overshield, so I think this one is better fitting here. And also it's first expected to lose and regain it a lot. And in the last slot again the Planetesimal set. Next up is Best Boy Kabr. Thing with Kabr is he's kind of difficult to build because there's not much synergy between artifacts and his abilities, but there's great synergy between his primary and secondary weapon and the rapid fire artifacts in PvE, so that's why I would use them in every slot. We have the Resolute Mutation, Healing Mutation, this one in the third slot and this one in the fourth slot. For PvP again, in the first slot we're using the Inverted Guard, wink wink, and in the other 3 spots we're using the Planetesimal set again, which is kind of universal, pun intended. Next up is my and probably everyone's main Ning Fei. For PvE I would actually build upon his summoning abilities, aka his side trick, because this gets even crazier when you get more copies of him, like C1 even at C6 when your side trick actually mimics your ult. For the first slot I would choose Warding Pact, where with every summon on the field you will get damage resistance, and this actually has great synergy with the second one, Siphoning Pact, where the summons restore health whenever they assist you in final blows, so they stay long on the field, you have longer damage reduction. Third slot, the Rampaging Pact is a no-brainer. The summoning gives you damage, you will be summoning all the time, this will be constantly up. And in the last slot there's the Resonating Pact. Oh man, this is so embarrassing, I'm out of artifact engrams. For PvP in the first slot we're going to use the Nourishing Pact, because there we can't rely on our summons to stay on the field. We need the instant health gain, because I do often use the side trick for disengaging, and this would pair up well with Healing Veil in the second slot, because the side trick is a movement skill as well, so you'll get even more health when using it. In the third slot again we're using Rampaging Pact, no brainer. In the fourth slot we're using Valiant Veil, which is actually better than the Planetesimal set, because this one only affects your weapon damage, whereas the Valiant Veil affects each of your damage source, which is preferable as we're going to spam abilities with Ning Fei. Turn 2 is fairly easy because you're going to use the exact same artifacts as with Attal, so just watch Attal's segment again. Next up is Wolf, who has also some movement and predominantly overshield in his kit, and that's why for PvE we're using Abundance in the first slot. In the second slot we're using Healing Veil, and reason for that is that his E refreshes whenever you kill an enemy, and everyone knows sometimes with Wolf you can zoom around the map, and that's why this artifact is so great in PvE. You'll be just getting constantly healed. In the third slot, as with Gwynn, we're using Ring of Morale, because not all of his abilities grant overshield. I think it's realistic to assume that even when your allies can grant you overshield, you're probably going to lose and regain it a lot. And for the third slot, we're using the Ring of Vengeance instead of the Ring of Reflection, because as I've said, as we're not Jolder for ult, we can expect the overshield to appear and reappear over and over again. For PvP, we were using our standard set, again with Inverted Guard, and for the other artifacts, we're using the Planetesimal set again. The reason for that is that he will only get an overshield whenever his passive has accumulated enough stacks. I think it's 120, and the overshield won't be there all the time to trigger certain effects, as in comparison to PvE. The last character is Xuan Wei, and he's actually pretty straightforward because with all of his abilities he's going to gain damage reduction. That's why for PvE the evolution set is the best. In the first slot is the Bulwark evolution, which is triggered by taking damage. In the second slot is the Unrelenting evolution, which is triggered by any of his abilities and the following damage reduction. In the third slot there's Predator evolution, also triggered by his abilities and or the first slot, the Bulwark evolution, and in the last slot there's the Sympathetic evolution, which is triggered the same way as the third slot is triggered. For PvP, because Xuan Wei is always up in the face of the enemies, we have in the first slot Resolute Conjunction, and in the other 3 slots again the Planetesimal set, and we actually have a pretty cool combination with the last slot, because whenever you hook an enemy you can instantly switch to your shotgun and one hit them, because the hook triggers the extra weapon weapon damage, which is pretty cool. Holy, we've actually made it. So thanks again for all of you guys watching my videos. Please like, subscribe and comment. Now that this guide is done, I can finally play the game.